Hey y'all, I'm Heather and welcome to my channel, The Debt Free Quilter. We've made the blocks and now it's time to put the Texas edition of the Exploding Heart quilt together, including the star. Ready? Let's go. Alright, so what am I doing on the floor of my minion's bedroom? Well, that's the only place I have room to lay out this quilt, and I'm doing so in 3 distinct sections, starting with the blue section, then the white section, and last but certainly not least, the red section. Now you may notice that I have some larger squares in there instead of a bunch of smaller squares for the grid pattern. I did this for a reason. This quilt, with all the squares that make everything up, all the blocks that make everything up, it creates a lot of bulk, and that creates a lot of weight. So I decided to make some of those blocks in open spaces larger so that I would not have as much bulk in certain areas. So pretty much anywhere I had 4 of the same color block in those big open areas or in areas of the heart itself, I used larger squares in order to reduce some of that bulk. At this particular moment, this quilt is an oversized jigsaw puzzle. I have to figure out what blocks go where and in what order. And I'll do that in 3 different colorways. And that's our blue section done. Here's a close-up look at how that star will go. And let's get to the next section. This time I'm starting with the large squares in the center of the quilt. So I will work my way out from the corner where the white meets the blue. One thing I found during this section was that some of the block counts were off. I don't believe that it was my count, but somebody made a boo-boo, and I'm not sure who. So I'm not saying they were or they weren't, but I found that some areas needed another block, some areas did not, and I counted these 3 times, so I know I had the right number. But since I was at this stage, was I going to go make more blocks? No, I was not. One, because I did not have the fabric for it. and two, because it was going to get done one way or another. If I had to shift blocks to make it work and make it look right, it's fine. And now the red section. Once again, I'm working from where the red meets the blue and the white out and down into that corner and getting everything laid out how I need it to be. Once again, this is an oversized jigsaw puzzle at this point, and I'm absolutely loving it because it's not going to take me all that long to complete. And also, as you can see while completing this puzzle, I'm also turning my page so that I can see where everything goes and know where everything is supposed to be in relation to how I'm sitting. The life of a quilter without a design wall. It will someday be on my bucket list to have one, but right now I have to deal with my design floor. And it was about here I realized I was a couple blocks short, but I also knew I had an extra of those large squares. So what do? I cut it in half and fill the space. Now that that's done, let's get to work on this star. As you can see, I have my heat and bond light. I have some parchment paper that I will use for pressing and my practice star. So first things first, I'm going to draw an outline of my template over there on my heat and bond light. And then I will cut that out and press it to the back of the fabric I require to make the star. I forgot I needed my paper scissors for this. All right, I'm clearing up my space a little bit and getting my fabric. And now I'm just going to cut the one piece that I need. I'm using my template there as a guide to how much I need to cut, and I'll go from there. Centering my heat and bond, and then I will move it to my small ironing station and just press this down. Now I've got my rotary cutter and my ruler, and what I'm doing is I'm treating this like it's an EPP. English paper piece template, except I'm using heat and bond and I'm going to glue it to the front of my quilt before I stitch it down. I gave myself about a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and when I am finished cutting this, I will go back to my pressing board and I will fold over all of my edges and seams, if you will, so that I can be ready to press that down onto the blue portion of the quilt. Now I'm just going to snip those inside corners so that they will lay flat and do what I want them to. And here we go, back to the ironing station. I'm using that parchment paper so that I can see where I need to fold my fabric over, and then I'm using my clapper just to give it a little more, oh, what's the word? Persuasion to lay the way I want it to. Now I am creating dog ears with this technique, so I'm not going to worry about those right now. I will worry about them right before I essentially glue this to the front of my quilt and then stitch it down. And I will press all of these seam allowances flat once again before I glue it actually to the front of the quilt. I feel like I need some theme song music in here, you guys. Yay, all the star legs are done. Let's flip it over and I'm going to give it another press just to try and make everything lay flat. Like I said, I am going to press this one more time before I remove that paper and stick it to the front of my quilt. I don't want it sticking to anything else. All right, let's start assembly. We got to get this blue section together so we can get that star stuck down. Now I'm doing these sections in such a way because I have the larger squares. So I need to make 2 rows to go on one larger square, essentially. So I am making one section, adding it to a second section, and then sewing those sections to the larger squares. One of these sections I actually have to do 3 rows in order to make it all fit. I swear that there is a method to my madness. Now that this blue section is all the way together, it's time to put the star on. So let's cut off these dog ears, grab the iron, stick it to the front of the blue section, and stitch it down. Getting the star lined up where I want it, tearing the paper off. Oh, we're at the point of no return. Now I'm going to iron that directly onto the front of this quilt. And I'm doing it this way so that I'm not having to manipulate the entire quilt in the throat space of my machine. Doing it this way was much easier. Now I'm essentially treating this like I'm quilting it. I've pulled up my bobbin thread around the back, and now I'm going from point to point to point very carefully. I know it doesn't look like it, but I'm going fairly slowly so that I don't go off of the star. And I'm just manipulating it and sewing everything down. And it made my life so much easier to do it this way as opposed to trying to do it after the quilt was completely together. And didn't that turn out beautifully? The star is on, that section is complete, and now back to our regularly programmed stitching. Let's get the rest of this quilt together, shall we? There are still two sections to go, the white one and the red one, and I'm assembling them in a similar manner to how I did the blue one, except this time I'm going sideways instead of up and down. And once again, I'm putting two smaller sections together to attach to the larger squares that are again in this section and will also be in the red section. So y'all, I'm running out of things to say. I'm just going to keep stitching. Dang bobbin. Now I have all the segments completed. It's time to sew all the rows together for this section. And here's another lovely section of this quilt. One more to go. That time my top thread broke. How rude. I still feel like I need that game show music. Hmm. And here's the third and final section. Please don't mind that laundry back there. I promise it's clean. of our Texas Exploding Heart quilt. Now let's put it all together. Starting with the red and white sections, as they are the same size, one way at least. Dang that bobbin again. We'll get this side of the quilt together and then add the blue side. Now I know this is moving fast, but I did make sure that the quilt was going the correct direction. I do not want to have to rip that seam and say it was on upside down. I'm not going to do it. And now that I do have that all together, it's time for the victory lap because this quilt is done. Now all it needs is a press of the seams just sewn, maybe a couple others. And then I'm going to hang it up and we're going to have a proper look at it. And here it is, the Texas edition of the Exploding Heart by Slice of Pie Quilts. This kit was purchased at Threaded Lines and cost me about $120. The kit is no longer in production, but you can still purchase the fabrics or your own fabrics. All right, y'all, let's talk about this quilt, the Exploding Heart. I'm not prepared. The Texas edition. I know there are a lot of Exploding Heart editions that are for a lot of the other states. What does yours look like? This is what mine looks like. What does yours look like? Because this pattern is so fun. And it did come out every bit of 72 inches square. And I am exceedingly happy with it. The applique and how I did it was actually a little bit easier than I anticipated. And I'm happy about that. But yeah, this quilt is another one in the books, and I cannot be happier that it's finished. And now it is back to school time. So I am going to be gone until mid-August so I can get my minions back on their school schedule and get everything situated for them. And I will see you back sometime in mid-August. So y'all have a great day. Have a great back to school. And we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.